In this retreat in New Mexico, I co-taught, or was assisted by a good friend who will be here in the fall and give you a talk at some point, named Ralph Steele, who is a black man, 6'2", Vietnam veteran, who didn't even grow up speaking English. He grew up on an island in South Carolina where they speak Gullah, which is one of the old dialects that's some mixture of African, and I don't remember what it is, French or something like that, and English together. And we had a wonderful time together, and in fact, part of what came out of our teaching together was the beginnings of an interracial Buddhist council for America to start to include various minorities in the Dharma in very active ways. And he'll probably talk about that when he comes. But anyway, he was talking about being in Japan. He was his stepfather was in the military, and then he was in the military, Vietnam, but he was in Japan, and he was studying judo and karate as a young man, 19-year-old, with his stepfather in the military. And he said, I went into this dojo where a number of men were practicing, and it was run by this diminutive little 4', 9-inch skinny master of karate and judo. And he said his dojo happened to be near a big American base. So there were a number of military men who went in there to get trained. And he said some of them were bigger and blacker than me and meaner. And they came in, and he said, when I first went in, I was kind of younger, so I was kind of willing to do what the teacher said. But some of these guys had been in the military for a long time, and they really meant business when they were going to learn something. So he said, I went into a class one day after a few weeks, and there we were, and there was this circle, and there were these new guys who'd come in to learn judo and karate, and they were big. And he said, and the teacher said, you get in a circle around me now. Now, some of you have some attitudes coming in here. He said, so let's work on that first before we do any practice. He said, maybe you like to fight. Maybe you think you're mean. Hit me, he said. Come hit me. So they just kind of put himself out there, and they'd strike at him, and he'd back away a little bit. And then he said he started to tease him. He said, you're no good. You're so big. You can't do nothing. And he kind of slapped him a little bit. Me. You want to show me how mean you are? Hit me. And they'd kind of try a little harder, and he'd continue to bait them, especially the ones who took the bait and were into that, until finally they got toweringly mad, which of course is their great mistake, because then he would draw them into the circle and use all that energy. Ralph put it this way. He said somehow in a few seconds you'd see them flying at him, their bodies flying off the ground. And the next thing you know, he'd be cradling their head so that was the only thing that didn't hit the earth really hard. And they'd be lying there a little stunned. He said, come on, me, you're going to do it. Hit me. And he would stay with them as long as it took them until finally they were exhausted. He wouldn't let them hurt him. He just let that come out until they were exhausted. And he said, fine, now go stand in the circle. Who's next? An extraordinary kind of training. In a way, when we sit on our cushion to do meditation, the cushion becomes the master of martial arts. It's true. You sit there, and your body tries to escape, and your mind tells stories, and you doubt, what am I doing? I'm doing it wrong. I've been doing it for all these years, and nothing is happening. And then you get afraid, and then there's pain in your knees, and then you get bored, and then a desire comes along, tries to throw you this way, and then you get angry at your desire. And all those things come up. And your task is just to sit there and find a center and understand something. With the container, it's as if you become the monastery just here on your cushion. I do an exercise sometimes in my practice. I used to do it when I felt restless, especially, which was I would sit at home, and after a while, because there was a lot going on, I have to call this person and do that, and something for my daughter and this and that, and I'd sit in all the things that I had to do that day would start to come in as they do, and I'd find myself leaping up off the cushion after a while, wanting to get started. And so when I noticed that, I said, all right, let's play with this a little bit. The exercise is simple. It's simply that I wouldn't get up until I really wanted to get up 3 times. So I'd sit there and first, all the various things would happen. And finally, this voice, very compelling, you've got to get up now. It's been long enough sitting. Make this call. The person will be gone or whatever. And I'd note that wanting to get up or desire. And I'd feel all the impulse in my body. And I'd breathe and just kind of settle down. And after accepting it for a bit, it would pass away. And I would drop usually to a deeper, stiller space. And then maybe 5 or 10 minutes or 15, whatever it was, 20 minutes later, a very strong urge to get up. All right, now you've really sat long enough. You better get to it. All these things are waiting and whatever. And I'd feel that whole impulse. I could almost feel it picking me up off my cushion. And I'd just sit there and say, there it is again, wanting to get up, desiring to get up, so forth. Sense that. And then it would pass. And again, it would deepen into a stiller, quieter place. And not until the 3rd time that it came really strongly would I get up. And somehow my sittings dropped to a very quiet place in the last parts of that cycle or that sequence. Does it make sense to you?